they said we could start early, but there's no college presentation, so we have to fill the entire time. So I feel like starting at 11:15. Yeah. Do you guys prefer doing questions at the very end or like in between? Because they'll be running around with microphones, and they said it's fine to do it either way.
I have no preference. I think if we do questions like in between,
Okay.
people will be engaged, and then if they like think of something, then that's good.
Okay. Sounds good.
Or you can do like if you have like a question, like raise your hand and someone can bring it back to you.
Okay.
It's kind of fun seeing like hopefully they can send it over. No, it felt wrong to. That was like
Hello. Oh, wow, that's loud. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole. I am the secretary of the School of Public Health Student Senate, and I will be running this breakout session on being an SPH student and trying to remember to talk into the microphone. And then we will have our student panel. And we will be opening up to questions as we go through the student panel. So if you do have any questions, raise your hand, and someone will come up to you with a microphone. So, when you were, I believe, registering for orientation, you were given a survey asking about your main anxieties for starting the fall semester. And so we have a nice little graph here about concerns for MPH students, and then the next slide is MHA students. Most of the concerns are meeting people, coursework, financing education. So general concerns for all graduate students everywhere. And so for our student panel, we're going to ask these questions to all of these. We actually have 3 panelists because Quinn has joined us despite being at orientation herself. So I will leave it up to you guys to introduce yourselves.
Hi. My name is Annie. I use she, her pronouns. I am a third-year PhD student in epidemiology.
Hi, I'm not up there, but I'm Quinn Mudry Nelson. I graduated with my MPH in the Public Health Administration and Policy program in May, and I'm starting here again as a PhD student in Health Services Research. So, yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michaela Ranke. I use she, her pronouns. I'm in the Masters of Public Health Administration and Policy program, and I'm also getting my dual degree in the Masters of Public Policy.
And I forgot to actually introduce myself. I am Nicole Sewell. I'm an MPH in Environmental Health, and then also Student Senate Secretary. So like I said, at any point, if you have any questions, just raise your hand. We'll be going through, like after each round of questions, we'll answer student questions. All right, and so first question is, how did you get involved in the things you are involved in? Where did you find opportunities? Just general extracurriculars.
So I also did my MPH here at UMN, and when I was doing my MPH, I was on the board, the editorial board for our student publication paper. Actually, it's not just for students. It's a peer review publication through UMN libraries. It's called the Public Health Review. And that was an awesome experience. And I got involved in that just by reading my email. They sent out an email that said, hey, we're interviewing for positions on this board. And I interviewed, and it was great. I'm glad that I replied to that email. Would highly recommend getting involved in that when the opportunity arises. I also TA'd a few times in my master's program, which I really enjoyed. My career trajectory, I want to teach ultimately. And getting involved in that was just asking professors if I could TA for them. I didn't wait for like jobs to be posted or anything. I really just did cold email professors or like build relationships with professors and said, hey, I'd love to TA for your class. And I enjoyed that. And then also as a PhD student, I am what they call a epi-PhD lead, which is relatively vague as a position, but mostly it's like community building events and being a resource for incoming first-year students.
Yeah, in my MPH, I was the president of the Student Senate last year. I was a part of Senate both of my years in the master's program. Really enjoyed it. There's a bunch of different committees that you can get involved in, a lot of different people that you can meet and connect with. Yeah, seconding like checking your email, and like specifically the Sphere. A lot of really helpful information about events, there's tons of groups that you can join, and you'll see more of those later today. Yeah, checking your email, talking to peers. Yeah.
I think I'll just add to some of the buddy programs and different programs that you can hopefully get exposure to in the involvement fair after this panelist session here. I think my specific cohort, PHAP, has a buddy program that we just sent out your pairs, and that was very, very beneficial to me my first year, being able to connect and have another resource for any questions. Another opportunity was the mentor program, being able to connect with alumni who are possibly in a career position that are where you are thinking you want to head, and they're a great resource as well. And I believe Student Senate also has a buddy program. So just getting involved and saying yes to different opportunities is definitely the way to go. As you're here, you're in grad school, and it's an exciting opportunity.
And on top of the Sphere newsletter, your division or department will also likely have their own newsletter that's worth checking out. I personally write the Environmental Health Department DEI newsletter. 3 people read it. It's great. But we have a lot of events in there and things that you might have missed for different opportunities for both student groups and even just one-off events to go meet people. Does anybody have any questions?
Could you re-ask your question? We're going to run around with some mics for people that have questions.
I was wondering how you can get involved in like extracurriculars like club sports.
I don't know if you could hear that, but the question was getting involved in club sports and those kinds of extracurriculars, and I don't know. So.
I don't know about club sports through UMN, but I am a runner and I'm involved in Mill City Running, and if you're new to the Twin Cities, it's just like a running store, but they have run clubs, and that's a great opportunity to meet people with a like interest in running.
Yeah, I would say as far as club sports through the U, I have not participated in any of them, but I would say look on the rec center's website. They do a lot of different like classes, and they might do leagues. I think they do. I personally play pickleball, and I go to a few places in town to do that. Very fun. There's people that do events. Maybe Senate will run that event again this year. Maybe. I don't know.
Quinn is right with the go to the wellness website. I do not know specifically. I know spring, fall, each semester has new opportunities, and so I think there's a wide range that are offered, and so I would just recommend going out to the website.
All right, and so looks like we have another question.
Hi, I had a general question. Does it have to pertain to getting involved in organizations?
Okay.
Or can I ask the general question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So my general question is, what was the hardest thing that you guys learned throughout your graduate education?
So the hardest thing that we learned was
I guess in terms of like a life lesson.
life lesson. Okay. All right, deep questions. Somebody else go first.
I'll go. I think the hardest thing about grad school and in public health in general is like learning patience. It can be really exciting to do research and to like evaluate a program or like do something actionable. and like to not be able to see the result of it sucks. I think patience is the hardest thing to learn in life in general. And this field will teach you to be patient, that there's always work to do. It happens over time. And yeah, it's hard. But to know and like to wait and finally see when things happen and to evoke change in the things that you will do is like the most exciting feeling. And to be able to like share that work with other people and the progress is like fulfilling enough that the patience and the waiting is worth it.
That's good.
Thanks.
I can go next. I'll probably kind of contradict myself in what I answered previously, but time management through my first year was something I definitely, not so much being able to manage classwork, but more so all of the extracurricular opportunities. It's very easy to say yes to everything, and it can become overwhelming when you realize that they all have activities going on throughout the week and throughout the semester. And so I think really being able to identify opportunities that are going to be a value add to you and a value add to your career is going to be something that's very, very important, and I am still learning that myself and learning how to say no to some things too. So.
I can go. I think probably the biggest lesson I learned is how important it is to just reach out to people you've never met, just cold emailing people, which is mortifying. But I think almost every opportunity I've gotten so far has been emailing a professor who I've never met, just like, hey, your research is cool. Can you talk to me about it? And they almost always say yes, and then you make that connection. And through doing that over and over and over again, I've gotten to a point where I have a lot of connections in the department, and that's how I got my research assistantship. And also just emailing a professor that I liked, if I could TA for their class, is how I got a teaching assistantship. So just reaching out to people who, you know, you want to talk to them, you want to learn about what they're doing, just email them that. It doesn't have to be super formal. You don't have to think it through too much, or at least I didn't. But yeah, just reach out to people. That's it.
I think mine, honestly, just is a fact of aging, but I learned about self-care and like how my different buckets that I need to fill and how to fill them based on like these chunks of time that I had to dedicate to schoolwork. So yeah, more like a personal lesson. But.
All right, so I will go on to our next question.
One more question.
What? Hi.
Hi. Getting involved sounds great. I also work full time here at the university, and so I'm curious to think about like when do clubs meet, and can I work that in not in like the 8 to 5 time period when I will have to work.
That is a good question. Hello.
Yeah, a lot of the clubs meet in the evening, so you're good. I know Student Senate meets in the evening, so there's that. But no, I think a lot of clubs usually meet in the evening, like later than 5, often like 6 is usually, so you have time to like get off work, go home if you need, commute in. Yeah, there's a lot of people that work partial or full-time jobs aside, and it's a lot harder to get involved, but always awesome when people can. So yeah, good question. Thanks for asking.
I'll also say most clubs that I've been a part of have options to join via Zoom, and they also have pretty flexible time commitments. I also have multiple jobs, and I'm in too many clubs. So yeah, a lot of times if you're someone who can't commit the full amount of time, they'll have options for that. So just ask around. Okay, so now I'll go on to our next thing here, and then can ask more questions after that. So the big one that everybody loves is work-life balance. How do you do that? Asking for myself.
I've gotten to a place where I feel like I have a really great work-life balance, and it came with like the practice of really conditioning myself to understand that like taking time for me, which includes social time, and not feeling guilty about not doing any schoolwork during that time. And I think that's really hard with like the general energy of academia and higher ed. But you deserve time to have fun, so you should take that time. And I think with enough practice, you get to the point where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna end my work right now, try not to look at your email during that time, try to put it all aside and not think about the next test you have, and just like take that time for yourself. I think it takes practice, but it's really worth it.
I would add to that, on top of doing those things, block off times on your calendar when you're going to do those things, or people will book meetings on top of the time that you plan to go do stuff. So that's like, in grad school, you have a lot of unstructured time, and so it's up to you to decide how you're going to use that time. So blocking off your calendar, using Google Calendar to organize and manage your time when you're meeting with people, when you have class, factoring in like how long it's going to take you to get to places. Calendar is huge here, for sure.
I would just touch on where Minneapolis is and how for the work-life balance, there's arts, there's sports, there's parks, there's a ton of things to do. And so I think just making sure you're taking the time to explore the city and the area too is a beautiful thing.
I will say that for myself, as someone who was more accustomed to a job where I clocked in and clocked out, the relatively unstructured time of grad school was kind of stressful because it felt like I needed to be working all the time. So something that I found helpful is imposing that structure for myself of like a deadline when I'm just not checking my email anymore. I'm done for the day. I'm not looking at things. Sometimes that's harder than it sounds, but it definitely helps. Any questions? All right, moving on.
And we got a couple.
Nope, oh, we got questions.
You can go first. We'll get you.
I was just kind of wondering, like, what are your experiences using, like, the different resources, for example, like the Chip Lounge and stuff that are available to or students in the MPH and other programs?
All right, so the question is, what are experiences using like the Chip Lounge and things like that? Well, I can answer if you want.
I went up to the Chip Lounge a few times, actually pretty regularly during my master's program. It's like dental student heavy. There's a lot of dental students up there, but it's a great resource, and they have cool couches and microwaves and a fridge if you want to leave stuff in the fridge, and free tea.
And wonderful lighting in the wintertime.
Yeah, this is a fact. I am almost never in the Sphere. They're very different energies. The Chip Lounge is like 7th floor of a newer building, and the Sphere is the basement of an older building. But yeah.
We are kind of trying to renovate the Sphere to the extent that we're able to. We're getting new fridges. It's nice. There's less people in there, so it's quieter and is easier to study. But it's also in the basement, so there's no windows, so there's that.
I often go down there when I just like, I'm like, I need to just like be in isolation and solitude to get stuff done, which for a student lounge might not be the greatest vibe, but I always like end up being able to focus on people. There's tables and places to work and sit, and it's nice, so.
Also, even outside of the Chip Lounge, the entire HSEC building is really nice, and there are a lot of study spaces. There's rooms you can reserve. There's couches everywhere. So wherever you're at in HSEC specifically, you can find somewhere to study. Very less true in Mayo, but there are some spaces there.
There's also some coffee shops around campus, but there's a Caribou in Moose too, so.
We have one question over here.
Hi, I was just wondering, like, I feel like with coming to grad school, I feel like behind before I've even like started. So like, how did you guys like cultivate a feeling of like security that you like know where you're going, or like that you're like gonna be okay? I don't know, like I feel like it's like everything's very overwhelming, and so yeah, like how did you get over that?
I don't know if I'm fully over it.
I can go if you want. So for reference, I went to undergraduate late, and I graduated with my bachelor's degree 2 weeks before my graduate program started. So I felt very behind. And the thing that I learned is that everybody feels that way. And then, I guess maybe not everybody. Some of you might be very confident. But most people that I talk to also feel very behind. And I think the thing about graduate school is that it's a very hurry up and wait experience. You're constantly having things you want to apply for and jobs and career services that you're trying to get into. But the reality is that everything takes time. You're probably not going to know exactly what you want to do at the end of your first year, and that's okay. You're probably not going to have all of your cool research jobs lined up your first semester, and that's okay. You're going to get there. You just have to put in the work of talking to people and slowly figuring things out. And that can be really stressful, but if it helps, everybody is also going through the same process. All right, so I'll go on to our next question here. So one of the other areas of concern is managing coursework and the academic experience. So how did everybody handle the rigor of graduate level classes? There we go. And where did you reach out to for academic support?
So I learned about office hours in my master's program. I didn't really use them as an undergraduate student, but then used them heavily in my master's program and in the PhD. And it's super useful, and professors love seeing you in office hours, and usually, okay, I guess the thing that I really liked the most about it was that I learned that other people had the same questions that I did. So I went there, and there were other students that were also confused about the same like regression modeling issue that I did, and it made me feel better about not getting it right away. So I loved that. It was also very helpful to learn. And then I think like forming study groups with other people was very helpful as well, and being able to talk through problems, and then maybe realizing sticky points and bringing them to the professor, reaching out to the professor if you need extra support. Generally just like asking for help and seeking help in the structures that are already there to support you, like office hours or like built-in study time in class.
Yes to all of that. I would also say that even if you're feeling like you are going to get behind, or you're like going to miss class, or like are traveling or something and might miss like an assignment deadline and you need more time, talk to the professor, get ahead of it. Like, I've never had faculty here say, no, I'm not giving you an extension on this. Like, as long as you, a lot of them don't even ask you to explain why. You just say, hey, I need more time to do this. Is that okay with you? They will change the deadline for you. They'll be like, yeah, no problem. Thanks for letting me know. And they will let you know if there's ever like a hard deadline, like pretty far in advance. And it's usually like end of semester kind of thing. So yeah, communication is very key with your faculty here.
I think I would highlight what Annie was saying about class groups being in person. Definitely was something that helped me. I did take a couple of my core courses online, and I found that I struggled with them a little bit more because it was easier to put them off, and you didn't have the resources being able to communicate with your classmates. And so I think I handled it best by being able to go to in-person classes and communicate questions that I had with my classmates.
One thing I'd add is that my experience here at least has been that the faculty is generally like pretty invested in students succeeding. It's not, I guess everyone had different undergrad experiences, but when you're in a large undergraduate class, the professor isn't necessarily specifically invested in like whether you pass or fail, in my experience. But here, if you have a question or you have a problem, reach out to your TAs, reach out to your professors. I've never had anyone be anything but helpful. Yeah, I don't know, just I know it can be hard sometimes to reach out to a professor if you're struggling or you don't understand something, but I've had nothing but good experiences doing that here. All right. So other fun question, stress and mental health. which I guess is kind of the same thing as work-life balance, but anyways, how do you manage stress and how do you prioritize your mental health?
I think similar to the lessons learned question that we had, I learned about like the ways that I need to take care of myself, which is not something that I really, like life kind of forced me in a position where I was like, oh, okay, I do need to exercise regularly to keep my brain chemistry in check. So I learned that about myself, and then being able to prioritize that and say it's like something that I need for me to keep me good was important. And I think that the University of Minnesota in general is really great about supporting the mental health of students, faculty, staff, and everyone in general. And an example of this that just came to my mind because I saw it recently was on a job posting for faculty in the School of Public Health. They list as one of the things in the organization that they prioritize the mental health and well-being and work-life balance of faculty members, which I don't think is common in like academia or faculty postings. So that really speaks to like the culture that the university is really trying to promote, I think, which is great.
I don't have a ton to add to that, but yeah, I would say just generally like going outside. It's and like go engage in the nature and like the many lakes, like go on walks. Like there's a lot of wonderful like walking paths around here. It's very easy to get lost in all of the concrete that we're surrounded by and just like pull up and study at home or in a building. And going outside is just one of the things that can be very like healing and just relaxing, at least for me personally. So that's something I do.
I think I'll just highlight some of the resources that are available on campus. Boynton Health Services, counseling services. I know that there's mental health advocates that are faculty members, and they should have either wearing a pin or on their wall. I think I hope that they're at the fair. I'm not sure if they're going to be tabling, but just making sure to look on the websites, because there's a ton of resources out there, and I think if you're paying for the student services fee, a lot of it is free of charge, so.
Yeah, I think for me, it just goes back to work-life balance. Pretty important factor in me maintaining my mental health is having an identity outside of school, outside of being a student. And I know that can be hard sometimes because when you're doing assistantship and classes and clubs, your whole like world kind of collapses to just be about graduate school, but having an identity outside of that is really helpful. Yeah, that's all I got. Question?
This is a question for Annie and anyone else that is applicable to, but you mentioned that you decided you wanted to go into teaching. I assume at the higher education level. How did you make that decision, and like what were the steps that you took to really start pursuing that?
So I decided that I wanted to teach at the undergraduate level when I was in undergrad. And at the time I was studying like justice and peace studies and environmental science, but had no real like academic trajectory for it. I was just like, okay, this is where I want to be, but what do I want to study for 6 years in depth to like get the degree that I need to do that? So I like went from this is what I want my career to be to, oh, I guess I like public health, I'll get an MPH. And then, okay, I really like social epidemiology, I'll move into that for the PhD. And within like that trajectory, my focus has always been on trying to develop my skills as a lecturer and teacher. So I did as much TAing as I could, which involves just like cold emailing professors, developing relationships with professors, and then asking if I could TA for them. And then seeking opportunities to like lecture in classes whenever I could. And then there's this graduate program called, oh shoot, what's it called? It's like teaching for higher ed. I don't know, I just did it. I don't know why I can't remember what it's called. Do y'all know what it's called?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't remember the acronym though. There's too many acronyms.
There's several
There's so many
acronyms.
acronyms.
We'll touch base later, and I'll remember what it is, but essentially you're like learning how to teach effectively, and then you get an opportunity to shadow a professor at any university of your choice, and then lecture in their class as well. And so the university has programs to build your skills as a teacher. So yeah, just like asking to have the opportunity as much as I could. Does that answer your question? Cool.
Hi, my question is, did any of you guys happen to like study abroad or anything like that? And what was your experience, if you have?
So study abroad?
Yeah.
So I have not done study abroad. I am doing a global health minor. I just missed the opportunities. There are 2 opportunities to study abroad through the global health program, one over winter break and one immediately after the end of spring. And it is 4 credit. One of them is the one in winter break is in India, Mysore, I believe. And then the one over summer break is in Ecuador. I cannot speak too much beyond that because I haven't actually gotten to do it. But I know last year they had brochures in the Involvement Fair. I don't know if they will this year, but you can also go to the Global Health Program's website and check it out. Because I know they also have scholarships to help pay for it as well.
Hello. I had a more future goal-oriented question. So, in what ways are you four going to help contribute to our current state of, I guess, public health or healthcare?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't quite catch the end.
Oh, what ways are you four going to help contribute to our current state of public health or healthcare?
You ask really deep questions.
I'm here for it though.
Yeah, no. How are we going to contribute to current state of public health?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, similar to Annie, I also want to, my ultimate goal is to become faculty. But the research that I do is in the area of like health communication. So, 5 minutes. I work on research, and I did my master's project on local news coverage of homelessness here in the Twin Cities. While that doesn't sound like inherently and directly public health related, we talk a lot about the social determinants of health in this field. And housing is unequivocally something that people need to have a healthy life and have opportunities and go get work and set them up for success and feel safe. And so that's the kind of work I do. I want to change how people are seen and address journalists, address public health communicators in ways that we can destigmatize homelessness and kind of flip the narrative and like that's a structural issue. There's no reason in 2024 that people shouldn't be able to afford and have a roof over their head if they choose. So that's one of the ways I contribute. I had a sociology background, so I try and use that perspective for good and to improve health in indirect ways. But there's a lot of ways to go about impacting this field, so.
I can go. So I'm in the environmental health program. My interest is environmental infectious disease, climate change, and global health. So specifically what I would like to do at some point in the far off future when I'm qualified would be to work at finding ways to adjust because climate change is happening. It's affecting infectious disease. We already know that, and the places where it's affecting infectious disease most are places that have the least resources to deal with it. And so it's particularly going to affect lower middle income countries or refugee camps and things like that where people are very crowded together. And so finding ways to affect that without perpetuating the colonial attitudes that are really common in historical global health practices. I personally am not qualified to do that now, so what I am currently working on is a migrant health project with the Mobile Health Initiative, finding ways to provide healthcare to newly arrived migrants who don't qualify for refugee status but have basically the same needs, which means that they don't have access to health insurance, which I don't know how to fix that. I'm not a policy person. Hi, Michaela.
Hi. I think I come from the place of, as everybody is seeing in 2024, the polarization of our political climate, and I think I'm incredibly passionate about bridge building and trying to having constructive dialogue and conversations about health and the health of, like Quinn so eloquently stated, just health is a human right, and so being able to converse about that, that's definitely what drew me to also pursuing a dual degree in the Masters of Public Policy. And I'm not exactly sure where that'll put me, but that's where my passion is at.
Does anybody have a lighter question?
No, ask the deep questions.
Well, you can ask the deep questions to Quinn.
I was wondering what your favorite study space is, like outside of the School of Public Health, like on campus. What are the other spaces that you enjoy using?
I don't leave the School of Public Health area, so yeah.
I did my undergrad at Augsburg, so I've been going to Seven Corners Coffee Shop on the West Bank, like, for a long time. Good coffee, very peaceful. It's not as busy as, like, the Starbucks or, like, the Caribou in either Moose or on the corner. So it's close enough to campus that I can get where I need to go if I hang out there. I also hang out on campus on, like, the 15th floor PWB a lot, because that's where HPM is a lot of the time, so.
Yeah, I don't spend a ton of time on campus unless I'm at school, but I would say that a lot of the coffee shops, a lot of the study spaces on campus are pretty occupied by undergrad students, and that's kind of why I tend to stay at Mayo, HSEC. But I would say the surrounding areas, downtown, northeast, Como, there's a ton of cute coffee shops if that's your vibe, but also there are spaces on campus. It's just I don't occupy them very often.
Walter Library is nice if you can find a spot, which is hard.
I don't know if this addresses your question because you were specific about staying away from SPH spaces, but one of my hacks was to go to my classroom where I was going to have a class early and just see if it's available for the time before class, because it's usually empty. You have the whole room to yourself, and then you don't really have to move when you're going to class. So I loved doing that every semester.
I do that too. We're at time.
Oh, hey, we're out of time. Time management is an important skill to learn in graduate school.
That we clearly have.
Next, I know how to do this. Next steps, lunch. Last slide, use your resources. You all have a program coordinator you can always reach out to, and that's usually the first place to go. There's SPH Student Services, and then always check your inbox for the Sphere newsletters, because that'll have a lot of stuff. And now I'm going to throw it back to Jenny.
I think so.
Hi, MS and PhD folks, you can come on in and find a seat where you were sitting before if that's available to you. Yeah. Your table is like, well, there's a sign. There's a sign at the table. All right, who's hungry? I know I'm hungry. All right, so lunch has been set up for us, which is great. We have I'll use my little clicker here. We have a wide range of, well, we have 3 options for our box meal lunches. They're catered here from D'Amico Catering. And then certain meals have been noted for dietary accommodations. And so they're sandwich box lunches. There are gluten-free sandwich options. You just need to find one of the D'Amico staff that's in the back in the black uniforms there. They can find a gluten-free option for you. The options are there up on the screen, and you can kind of decide which one you might want to go for once you get up that way. But I do ask if you can try to not take one of the accommodation meals if you did not reserve one of those in advance, just so we have enough for everybody who did reserve one. All right, so during the lunch hour, you can return to your seat here if you would like. You can also take your food outside if you prefer to get a little bit of fresh air. And we just ask that you bring your trash back into this building if you do eat outside. Also during lunch, we have what's new for this year, which is the same for you all, is an involvement fair. So back in that Johnson room where you were for that resource fair this morning, we actually have SPH-specific groups. So this morning was more campus partners and kind of different services that are available to you. This is going to be more about opportunities for you to actually get involved in SPH activities that are here in our school and college. And so that will be available to you the entirety of the lunch period, so you can come in, you can eat your lunch, and then you can spend some time meeting the different student groups and getting to know them a little bit better during that time. Like I said, like all the folks have said this morning, this is a great time to kind of make connections, build your professional network with your fellow students. There's some staff that are present here today as well. We do ask that you will just return back to your table at 12:50, and we'll dismiss you there for the afternoon programs. So I think that is, there's one more slide, I think. I have the control, I should be able to do that. Is that the next one? We have some raffle winners, and so you may not have known this, but we did a random drawing of raffle winners for everybody who checked in today. And so if your name is up on the slide, you can go back to that check-in space, and you can pick up a special SPH swag bag and U of M gear. So congratulations to our raffle winners. And I'm going to dismiss folks for lunch by table, just so we don't get too backed up. And so I'm going to take like the two rows that are kind of in this area here. If you want to stand up, and you can make your way over to the box lunch lines, and then I'll make my way across in just a little bit. Thank you.